Named after the ancient African city in Egypt, Memphis, Tennessee would be the final battleground for Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. This is Vernon Ash reporting. Considered by many to be a modern-day prophet, in his short life of 39 years, Dr. King touched the hearts of millions in America and around the world, and his legacy of nonviolent direct action continues even decades after his passing. Later, you'll hear actor Moses Peace in his portrayal of Dr. King as he gives an inspired speech of this writer's thinking on what the slain civil rights leader might say if alive today. But first, some thoughts about Dr. King from exclusive interviews with historical figures who remember the prophet and the times. These reflections in history feature the former Stokely Carmichael, now known as Kwame Ture, Minister Louis Farrakhan, Reverend James Netters, photographer Ernest Withers, and the Reverend Samuel Kiles.
And we were having coffee and sort of celebrating our victory. And then we heard the news that Dr. King had been shot. And immediately I guess I had a premonition that he was dead, that he had been killed. And they were trying to console me, I suppose, and saying that maybe it's not, he'll be all right. I said, no, he's dead. And during all of this confusion and emotion, the white councilman decided, after the news did break that Dr. King was in fact dead, they decided not to bring the resolution to the council because they felt that that would not be good in the eyes of their constituents, their voters. It would look to them as if these councilmen were acquiescing under pressure and throwing in the towel. And they didn't want to look bad in the eyes of their voters. So all the work that was done, the very thing that Martin King died for, was accomplished about 1 hour before his death. But it was never brought to the public knowledge because those councilmen would not support it after his death because of fear of pressure from their constituents.
Photographer Ernest C. Withers has compiled the most renowned collection of photographs that chronicle the civil rights movement. The award-winning photojournalist is a member of the Black Press Hall of Fame and has seen his work published in Ebony, Jet, Life, Newsweek, The Washington Post, and The New York Times, just to name a few. Dr. Withers had numerous conversations with Dr. King and photographed the Nobel Peace Prize recipient on countless occasions. He recollects now the very first time his camera lens met the eyes of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
My first seeing of Martin Luther King, the first time I saw him, to know him or to see him in presence through my human eye, was in 1956 in December, the night that the Supreme Court decree came to Montgomery. And Martin King and the whole maiden delegation of people delegated to ride the bus as the official ride of the desegregated bus, or the official test ride, or the official ride of acceptance. Myself, Dr. Smiley, and another African-American man with the National Council of Churches were among the others who got aboard the bus as it began to run the route in Montgomery. It ran through several neighborhoods, people getting on, people getting off. Martin King was sitting on the first rider seat straight forward with the Dr. Smiley and the other gentleman from the National Council of Churches, a white guy. Smiley was sitting in front of him. The maiden ride ended up downtown in the square at Montgomery where Martin got off, and if you've seen that picture of him in front of the bus with the standing very proud, a single picture with a Pepsi-Cola thing behind it. Martin, even then when I talk with him, making this picture, you don't take a man's picture, single picture of him without saying something, but it actually doesn't hang to be a part of the memory, other than, I might have said Dr. King or Reverend King. I don't know whether I said Dr. or Reverend, but then he gave me the kind of general expression, but on and on and on, over the next year, he came to Memphis, where he organized SCLC. I made him there again with Bishop Patterson, with Bishop Vernon, with Bishop Reverend Vernon, and of course he honored Reverend Vernon very highly, because Martin Luther King was a Baptist, a young Baptist preacher, young Baptist Turk preacher.
On the day Dr. King was killed, Withers arrived at the Lorraine Motel shortly afterwards and rescued the film shot by another photographer. These pictures would later preserve a piece of history and reveal to the world the scene just moments after King had been shot.
James Lawson had a speaking engagement at Southwestern. James Lawson said, "Withers, take Andy Young back to the Lorraine Hotel. He needs to report to Dr. King." I drove Andy Young back to the Lorraine Hotel. I drove in there in that normal fashion, put him out right at the office, and drove on out. Went back to my office with my feet sitting in one chair and feet in another chair. The phone rang, and my partner's wife said, "Turn the radio on, Martin Luther King has been shot." Well, we scrambled for all the film and stuff that we had and dashed toward the Lorraine Hotel with all types of thoughts. When we got there, the police department had it quartered off. But after some 15, 20 minutes, they let the wave of the press come in, and I was a part of that. But then when Joe Lowe saw me, he had been seeing me, but we had not interacted in any way. But he said he was an African boy from Zimbabwe. He said, "Do you have a darkroom?" And I said, "Yes. I have some film and I'd like to develop." It's okay. In close conversation, we learned that the film was a film that he had made right after the assassination. And I could tell from his mental sound in the darkroom that he didn't know what he was doing. I didn't question him in it, but I learned that he was just a storybook photographer. He was a fellow that knew the